Hi, my name is Kevin Kotz, and I'll be an instructor this semester for History 335, Rome and Christianity. And what I've done in this introductory lecture is just giving you a brief introduction to some of the problems that come up with early Christianity. My office is SF 436, and it's in the newest building on campus on the 4th floor. I have my office hours listed on the syllabus, and of course my email if you need to get a hold of me in that way. I am pretty good about checking my email. I check it multiple times a day up until about 9 p.m. and then starting around 7:30 in the morning. I tend not to check it at all between those times, but certainly I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. What I've got here on this slide is an image of a woman, and she's found in one of the catacombs in Rome. And we'll be talking about the catacombs in a later lecture. But what she's doing here is praying. So most people think of praying today as being, hands in front of your face and so on. But early Christians prayed with their hands outstretched like this and usually looking upward. So if you ever see this image in some iconography or the study of pictures, then that's usually what they're doing. As I said, before we go into some of the detail of the class, I do want to just talk to you a little about how, even though we're going to be studying the history of early Christianity, which is from, well, we'll go from Judaism from about 1000 BC very quickly to about 1 BC, and then we'll start looking at early Christianity. Just because this history is 2,000 to 3,000 years old, it doesn't mean that things aren't changing. For example, what I've given you here is something that was just discovered just a few years ago. And you might have heard about this. This is the document written in Coptic, which is an Egyptian language, on the so-called wife of Jesus. And let me see if I can work this. Let me just underline here where this part is. It's this word here. And what you can see is I've given you the translation down at the bottom, and it goes line by line. So what you see here is the Coptic, and then what you see here is the English. If you want to take a minute, you can certainly turn off the video and read through all this, but this caused quite a bit of controversy because lots of people assume that Jesus would not have a wife because he's God. This particular text, we're not quite sure when it was written, we're not even quite sure if it's real, says otherwise, says that he did have a wife. I've got here some text that I'd like you to stop the video and read, and I want you to think about it. The topic of this particular text is Judas. So if you're familiar with the New Testament, Judas is the one who betrayed Christ. Now what I want you to do is to stop the video, read through it, think about what this text is saying, especially about Judas. Okay, I'm assuming you have restarted the video, and what you can see here is that Judas in this particular text is a beloved disciple of Jesus, and he's someone that Jesus told secret things. You can read that down at the bottom of this particular text. Now this is from a text called the Gospel of Judas, and this was discovered just a few years ago, and again it caused lots of controversy because Judas is seen as the betrayer of Jesus and not someone that Jesus would give all these secrets to and not to the rest of his disciples. So again, that was parts of the Gospel of Judas. Here's another text which I'd like you to stop the video and read. The Mary that's being referred to here is Mary Magdalene. So why don't you stop the video and then I will come right back. And once again, after you've read this, what you'll see is Mary Magdalene is someone who was very dedicated to Jesus, and I'll just mark it here, this particular section. Peter is saying this, "Sister, we may know that the Savior loved you more than all other women. Tell us the words of the Savior that you remember," and so on. And then Mary responds, "I will teach you about what is hidden from you." And by you, she means the disciples. Now, of course, I don't know if you know anything about Mary Magdalene, but there is a story about her that she's a prostitute. Now, this story is absolutely false. So she was not a prostitute in the New Testament. And over time, she moves from a very important woman in the New Testament to one of the lowest on the social scale, which is a prostitute. But again, that story is not true. This particular text is called the Gospel of Mary. It was discovered in the late 1800s, made big news back then, and it's still making news today. If you go into any bookstore, you'll see copies of the Gospel of Mary because it's a very important text, and it gives us a different view. This is probably done or written by a group of people called the Gnostics, and we will definitely take a look at them. They were Christians. They just had different views of the New Testament characters. Okay, what I have here are a series of questions, and what I'd like you to do is to copy these down, think about them, write an answer of maybe one sentence or 1 to 3 or 1 to 4 sentences, and then answer these questions on the discussion board. So the first one I'm going to talk about, it's not a question, it's a word called historiography. And what historiography is, it's the study of the writing of history. So very, very important if you are a history major, maybe not so important if you're not a history major, but what historiography does is it looks at how history, or the writing of history, the understanding of history has changed over time. This will become very important in our class, at least for the history of women. And again, what I'd like you to do is to stop the video, write these questions down, and put your answers up on the discussion board, and then I will discuss these questions and answers on that discussion board. But let me just read the questions for you. So what is history? Can what happened in the past be truly known? Be sure to give your reasoning for this, and if it cannot, then what is history? I want you to think about what the sources of history are and what these sources can tell us. Okay, so getting more into the content of our course, we're going to be focusing on 6 major topics over the next 10 weeks. Women in early Christianity, ecclesiology, which is the study of the church, and the rise of something called the episcopacy, and that is the hierarchy in the church. So priest, bishop, archbishop, cardinal, pope, and so on. We'll also be looking at the interactions between the Romans and the Christians. We'll be looking at the differences between orthodoxy, which is considered to be the correct form of religion, and heterodoxy, which is the not correct version. We'll spend quite a bit of time talking about something called Christology. Christology is the study of Christ. And in the next lecture, I will have some of these words and some of the definitions, so you don't need to write these down now. The last topic we'll spend a little bit of time on is early Christian archaeology, which is something I'm very interested in. We are going to be a theme-based course, meaning I would like you to pick a topic at the very beginning of the course, and you will write your essay, and you will write your blog entry. So you'll be keeping a blog throughout the course, and all those writing assignments will be based on the topic that you choose. Now, I've given you here a list here of 8 different topics. So how Christian art developed, down through the roles of women in the early church, beginning from the beginning up through the 400s. So what I want you to do this week is to think about one of these topics. If you have something else you're interested in that ties into early Christianity, just pop me an email and we can discuss it. The ones I've written here, you can find quite a few sources, both primary, which are the original texts, and secondary. So in this week and early next week, be sure to look through these topics and choose one. And what I want you to do is to then put your topic up on the discussion board and write about why you chose that particular one. I think that's due next week, not this first week. What I always do in my first courses, both live and online, is to talk about plagiarism, which I don't like doing. It rarely happens in classes, but I want to make sure that people understand exactly what it is. And what I've done here is given you 3 examples of plagiarism. And I also give you examples about how to fix that or how to not plagiarize. So what I've given you here, and this is what I just called plagiarism example 1, is I've given you a bit of text from a book that I teach when I teach about the later Roman Empire. It's by an author named Bury, published in 1958. And when I designed this slide, PowerPoint won't let me insert footnotes, so you have to assume that there's a footnote here. What I've done is I've given you a quote from here to here, and this is a direct quote, meaning I've copied it word for word. And I've given you the source here. Now down at the bottom of this, someone wrote this. And what I've done here is I've underlined and bolded this particular section. And what this is this section matches with this one, word for word. But when someone writes this, the Huns played an important role in North Italy, and then they copied and pasted all this. They also insert a footnote here, a proper footnote. I want you to stop the video and think about why this is considered to be plagiarism. Okay, so it was considered to be plagiarism because someone copied and pasted a direct quote without putting the quotation marks around it, so at the beginning and the end. A better way to handle this would be to write a summary where you look at the primary source or you look at your secondary source, you read through it a couple times, you think about it, and then you write it in your own words. And that doesn't mean copying and pasting every other word and filling in every other word. That's still considered to be plagiarism. It's done in your own words. And this is what I've done here. And then I give a footnote to the exact page in Bury in that particular book. You don't have to put quotation marks around it because it's a summary. And you know it's a summary because there's a footnote at the end without the quotation marks. This is plagiarism example number 2. This is the exact same quote that I just showed you. And what I want you to do is look at this. Now, just to save you some time, from here down to here is a direct copy of this, word for word. So what I want you to do is to stop the video and think about why this is considered to be plagiarism. Okay, that was considered to be plagiarism clearly because someone copied and pasted that and didn't put any footnotes and they didn't put quotation marks. So they made it look like it was their own work. This is the correct way to do it. You put your quotation marks here, put them at the end, and then insert a proper footnote to Bury with the page number and so on. This is plagiarism example 3, and I don't have an example here, but a few times over the course that I've been teaching, I find that people put in fake or misleading footnotes. So they will put a footnote at the end of a sentence, make it look like it's from a book with a specific page number. And I'll warn you, I always look up at least 2 or 3 footnotes for each writing assignment for every single student. So I check for things like this. You want to make sure you give the exact page number and the correct page number when you're giving a source. If not, to me, this is considered the most serious form of plagiarism. And what will happen if you're found plagiarizing or any type of academic dishonesty in this course, I must fill out a form that talks about the academic dishonesty. I sign it, my head of department will sign it, and it'll go off to the dean, and it'll be put in your student file. If you get 2 of these letters put into your file, you'll be put in front of a judiciary, and you'll have to explain why you're cheating in your university career. The penalties for this can be as severe as being kicked out of the university. If you have any questions about this, academic dishonesty or anything like that, please contact me. Usually people just make mistakes and it's not a serious thing, but we want to make sure that we do it right. Okay, and that'll be the last time that I talk about plagiarism in this class. In the next lecture, we will talk about some of the definitions and some things that were happening in early Christianity.